He worked up until the end of March of that year, and he died in the middle of May. We should all be so lucky. And I think there's a very nice little story I'll quickly tell. He was a twin, and when he was 5 or 6 years old, he told his twin brother Andrew that he wanted to be a doctor. A couple of years later, Andrew Salter came down with rheumatic fever, which was a very, very scary prognosis. I can imagine his parents at the time. There was really no cure except for being in bed for a year. So a 9-year-old boy had to stay in bed for a year. And every day, his twin came back from Romeo School and tutored his brother in what they'd covered that year so that Andrew would not fall back and that they could go up to the next grade together the following year. Robert Salter was absolutely convinced that Andrew would survive and thrive. And in fact, he did. He outlived Robert Salter by a year. Wow. So I would like to ask Mayor Dan Matheson, and I would like to ask David and Leona Sharp to come up, please. David and Leona Sharp are the owners of 56 Front Street. And I do want to say, Robert Salter died in May of 2010, and David and Leona bought that house in May of 2010.
Oh, cool.
So I'm thinking that this was all serendipity. But this is the plaque that will be put on 56 Front Street that will honor Dr. Robert Bruce Salter, who I think is a very deserving Stratford-born son. So much. Mayor Matheson.
Thank you all very much. Congratulations.
Item 6.2 is a presentation by Stempsky Kelly Associates, Inc. on the comprehensive wayfinding strategy, and there is a motion that the presentation by Sean Kelly on behalf of Stempsky Kelly Associates be heard.
Moved by Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Burback that Mr. Kelly be heard. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Mr. Kelly, please come forward.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm happy to be here tonight to speak to the comprehensive wayfinding strategy for the City of Stratford. As we go through this, I will talk about a few things tonight, basically who we are and why we're working on this project. What is wayfinding, the process, stakeholder engagement, what we actually heard from the community, the strategy we created, and then we have some signed families, concept A and B, and implementation strategy. And in the end, basically, just a statement on what we have achieved at this point. So, as introduced, I am Sean Kelly. I'm a principal of the firm. I'm the Kelly and the Stempsky Kelly Associates. We're a small landscape architectural planning and design firm based out of the Fergus area. I am here with my counterpart tonight, though, Meg Thomas at the back, who knows this town now probably better than most people. She's been through every nook and cranny and has looked at everything. So if I need any support on any information, she's the one we're going to talk to. We were retained about a year ago to facilitate and prepare a comprehensive design for a citywide wayfinding strategy system that addresses the needs of visitors and residents while considering all modes of transportation. We always like to start by telling people what wayfinding is, because I believe most people think it's just signage. Not the case. Wayfinding is the process of using information to find one's way around your natural or built environment. Wayfinding design is the process of organizing information to help users find their way. It's really important. Signage design is only part of wayfinding, and it's probably the output that we all see and experience. To do its job well, good wayfinding plan must assess, identify issues and sources of confusion in the subject's environment as people move around it, in order to yield a high-quality communications solution. The process we undertook for this over the last year included 3 phases. We created a foundations report, a site design and location plan, and the implementation strategy. And I would suggest where we're at right now is probably getting into the implementation strategy and detailing and fine-tuning it. And this results in a comprehensive wayfinding strategy designed to create the wayfinding system itself. You know, we want to speak to the sense of place, the identity of Stratford, and the interconnectedness of the city and its features, and ensure that people can navigate through them within the community borders. Always when you do a project like this, it's imperative to have tremendous stakeholder engagement. We endeavored to do that. We had an interactive and informative stakeholder engagement process that had internal stakeholder interviews, and I believe we talked to about 13 folk from the city. We had an external stakeholder as well as a public workshop, a couple of workshops there. We also had external stakeholder and public open houses. We also did an online survey, and we're pretty proud to say that collectively we had about 300 people participate in this process and help give some input for the Stratford wayfinding strategy. What we heard generally, and this is really watered down to a few lines because I can probably give you about an inch thick of it in a report, but there's 5 primary focus areas important to the city of Stratford and its residents. Accessibility seemed to come out number 1, parking, active transportation, dealing with complex intersections and areas of confusion within the city, and certainly the destinations. What do we want to evoke and certainly present to our visitors and our residents? These areas were addressed through the development and use of a standard set of placement and messaging guidelines. Really important. This informs how we move forward. A more detailed and universally recognizable approach to parking and the assigning of AT facilities and destinations within the system. So the strategy becomes a pretty hefty document. I like to call it a working binder. Most communities we work in do not build their wayfinding program in one go. It's a multi-year process. Typically, the document's 11 sections as it stands right now, and in that document we have 2 sign concepts or family of signs. Within each one of those, there's about 12 sign types. So Stratford's looking at approximately 300 signs potentially, depending on how robust it really wants to embrace the information that's come around. We're going to deal with gateways, you deal with direction and information, and certainly kiosks, how to get to places. We certainly have one preferred family of signs and one alternative to that. With the help of staff and residents, we were able to determine down to 40 sign destinations and amenities. These can include things like public washrooms, parking, EV charging stations, there's many others. And in the end, 16 placement maps and messaging charts. This is where the signs go and what each sign would say. So preferred sign concept A will revitalize the existing sign. It makes use of the best while improving the rest of it. This was actually a bit of an interesting point for us because we thought the project was really about getting rid of the old signs. But as we went to the public and we talked about it a bit, what kept coming back to us is that part of the nuances that they liked about the old signs or the old signs held were things people were familiar with and happy with. So we thought it was important to actually be able to build upon that as one alternative. This was identified as preferred concept during the consultation process. The features for these include individual destination blades on a common substrate base, so a backing board of sorts with destination blades on it. Improving the legibility with appropriately sized reflective high contrast letters. Really important. We're not sure how the last signs were determined, but people move at in different modes of transportation at different speeds, meaning lettering size has to change. Readability and accessibility right now is a big topic, and obviously you want to get something that's long lasting and is out there for a while, so you make sure you're going to adhere to that. And something that was familiar, pageantry shape and historical banner arm, gave us a family of signs that somewhat like this. And what we see in this image is basically a primary gateway or a series of gateways at the top. And depending on the importance and the value of the importance of that gateway, that might be determined through numbers of folks traveling through that portal or not, or where in the community it should be. The robustness of this and how big it should be would be determined. As you can see at the bottom, however, is this more vehicular directional or multimodal directional. They look differently as well. We've gone back to universal standards, certainly for parking. That seemed to be really important rather than to create a Stratford's own parking sign. It was felt that a universal standard, going back to that, seemed to make sense. And what you see, you do have a ghosted out figure there, and a vehicle as well. You can see the scale of these signs. They will be very prominent. So for general scale and magnitude, that's what you would get. An alternative to this, however, is a bit of a derivative to this, and it was to be provided to council for consideration. It basically includes a single message banner on an offset substrate. It will have a different look. You'll see it in a sec. Similar but more straightforward banner arm and detail, and a modern style or more contemporary style with straight lines and minimal detail. And that family looks more like this. Now, it's really hard. I don't have them side by side right now, but you do have an executive summary that looked like this that was shared with all council members, and both sign options are in there, so you'll be able to compare them. At this point, once we have some review of this and some information back to us, we're able to detail them out appropriately. But these are the two that are shown right now, and arguably there were several others that were created for public review, and this is what it got whittled down to. So there's been a lot of input to date on that. How do we implement these? Well, really, it's four components. What you want to have with an implementation strategy, certainly for something as large as a wayfinding strategy, is it has to be designed to be flexible to accommodate available budgets. It gets phased overall. As I mentioned earlier, it could be a multi-year approach. We have some communities that are working on a decade-long process, just because that's the way budgets flow for them. Some other ones tend to be a little richer or better resourced, and they can do them earlier. Counties tend to move very quickly on them. We just finished Wellington County as well as Brant County, and they're pretty much doing everything right now, and expanding as they do it. But as new developments are evolving needs, you don't know what your community is going to be. You have different developments that may happen in the community. You might identify a new gateway that way. So, advancements in manufacturing techniques and materials have to be available to us. We have to be responsive to that. In 3 years now, perhaps there's a different material out there that has better color fast, better reflectivity. We just don't know. So the guidelines speak to what the intent is, what we're trying to achieve. The sign fabricator can then respond to that. And obviously, you want to have an ongoing review of the overall success, whether successful or not. 4 components that you want to deal with implementation. There's obviously a management for that, the phasing and priorities, which you get to set for yourself, the implementation or the building of that cell, and then once it's done, the maintenance of it. So what we achieved in Stratford, we have a comprehensive wayfinding strategy based on a thorough background, we believe, and a best practice review of what's happening elsewhere. We have an extensive sign inventory analysis of the community right now, and an information engagement process that was quite more robust than we've seen in a lot of other communities. The results of the document that provides guidance and recommendations for the city to implement an effective wayfinding system, which we believe will be relevant today and certainly bring you to the future and last a long time for the city. And that's my presentation. Any comments?
Great. Questions for Mr. Kelly? Anyone wishing to move that the executive summary that was prepared be received, and then it be referred to infrastructure transportation? Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Ingram. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Next item.
Moving on to Section 7, Orders of the Day. Item 7.1 is correspondence from the Perth District Health Unit regarding their 2018 annual report, and this is for the information of council.
Move that it be for the information. Thank you.
Item 7.2 is a resolution with a staff recommendation that funding in the amount of $65,000 be provided for the installation of shoreline protection on the south side of Lake Victoria from Waterloo Street to Moran's Drive, and that the funding be provided by reallocating approved funds from the 2019 Storm Sewer Maintenance Miscellaneous Projects Capital Account.
Moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Burback. Discussion. Councillor Seven.
I just had a question around how long-term of a solution this will be for the shoreline.
Mr. St. Louis or Mr. Delovic?
Through your worship. It's similar to the work that's been going on out there already, so we're talking, there's be a lot of rock that's involved with it, the stonework. Yes, there'll be some wooden cribs as well to provide lookouts as they've done in other parts of Lake Victoria. So I think with the rock work, that is durable. The crib work, over time, you'll eventually have to replace some of the wood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Not a motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried.
Item 7.3 is a resolution with the staff recommendation that council has no objection to the lifting of the 0.3 meter reserve described as the eastern 40 meter of Block 170, Plan 44M-17, that upon receipt of a reference plan describing the eastern portion, council will proceed to dedicate the lands as public highway, and that all costs associated with the lifting of a portion of the 0.3 meter reserve and the dedicating of the lands as public highway shall be borne by the owner of 193 Olone Avenue.
Moved by Councillor Ingram, seconded by Councillor Henderson. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried.
Item 7.4 is also a resolution with the staff recommendation that the delegation of authority bylaw be further amended to delegate authority to the manager of housing, or in the absence of the manager, to the director of social services or the supervisor of social services to sign rental agreements between the city and tenants for the Britannia Street housing project.
Moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Bunting. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried.
Item 7.5 is a resolution with the staff recommendation that the city submit an application to the Connecting Links program for 2019 to 2020 for the Huron Street reconstruction project, and that the Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign and submit the application on behalf of the municipal corporation.
Moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Burback. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried.
Moving to your addenda, item 7.6 is correspondence from the Ontario Good Roads Association, which are asking for call for nominations to their board of directors. As noted on your addenda, Councillor Burbeck has expressed interest in letting her name stand for nomination, and there is a motion that Stratford City Council endorses the nomination to the Ontario Good Roads Board of Directors.
Councillor Gaffney.
I'll make the motion and include Deputy Mayor Ritzma has shown an interest too. So both.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Seven, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you.
And item number 7.7 on your agenda is correspondence with regard to nominations for Board of Directors of the Perth County Municipal Association. And Councillor Henderson has expressed interest in letting her name stand for renomination. And there is a motion on your agenda.
Councillor Henderson.
I'd like to make a motion that it endorses the nomination of Martin Ritzma and Bonnie Henderson.
Seconder for that. Councillor Burback, discussion. Not all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Moving on to Section 8, business for which previous notice has been given and there was none scheduled. So moving on to Section 9, reports of the standing committees. And item 9.1 is the report of the Finance and Labor Relations Committee, and there are 4 items listed for consideration as follows. Item 9.1.1, that option 3, which includes an adjusted base rate, accounts for the 1/3 tax exemption, consists of $4,000 in lieu of group health and dental coverage, and includes an estimated average per diem for councillors be implemented retroactive January 1st, 2019 for all members of council. Item 9.1.2 is consideration of the application by Value Village to open on certain retail business holidays in Stratford. Item 9.1.3 is request to waive water and wastewater charges due to discoloration event. And item 9.1.4 is a request for changes to the 2019 capital budget for the grit removal system.
Moved by Councillor Clifford, second by Councillor Henderson. Councillor Clifford.
I would ask that 9.1 will be taken separately, please.
9.1.1?
Yes.
Thank you.
9.1.
Any others to be taken separately? Okay. So we have 9.12, 9.13, and 9.14 have been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. Item 9.1.1 has been moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Clifford and then Councillor Burback.
I find the increase out of line, quite frankly, and I think if we are going to approve it, to have it retroactive, like the main part, other than the tax increase on the 1/3, but I believe to have the 1/3 tax exemption retroactive, but the other part, I think that's unacceptable. it wasn't in the budget, we didn't plan for it, and I think it's, I'll have to continue on.
Okay, Councillor Burback?
I would agree with Councillor Clifford about the retroactivity. I am interested in making a motion that we do option 2 rather than option 3. The cost is the same, but it provides an ability for councillors to have benefits if they so choose.
Councillor Henderson?
I'd also like to suggest a change that we go with option 2, but that the benefits don't kick in till, well, it's already the end of October, so why don't, we could make it the 1st of December or January 1st, because obviously the year's already gone by, and this was in the past supposed to be back to us by what, March? And it came into not till September. So my idea would be go with option 2, do the benefits in January. That would save around $44,000, and go with the rest as the motion is January 1st, 2019.
All right. The motion for 911 had been moved and it's been seconded, and that was for option 3. So for the people wishing option 2, we'll need to defeat this motion. And then whatever supplement amendments you'd like to make to it would have to go forward at that time. So is there anything further on item 9.1.1? Not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those in favor? 1. All right. Opposed? Defeated. Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
I'd like to make a motion that we go with option 2, and the only, and it will start January 1st, 2009, and the only change would be that the benefits in lieu of or benefits would start January 1st, 2020, and that would, or 2020, and that would save around $44,000.
Seconder for that option. Councillor Beatty. Discussion. Councillor Seven, and then Councillor Clifford.
I just wanted to clarify that option 2, the benefits are not optional. Is that
They
correct?
are optional.
Ms. Mockler.
Through the chair, the benefit package is optional for option 2. What is not optional is it's a health and extended health and dental combined package for either single or family coverage, if you wish to have that, or it would be in an in lieu amount of $4,000.
So each councillor would have the choice of either or. That's it.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Clifford.
I was going to, on that $4,000, I'm of the age where I don't have to pay for drugs, and I believe there's others here. And also, I have a health plan at my company, so I don't think, I've already got it, and if I get an extra $4,000, I think that's unfair, because I already have a plan. I have a drug plan because of my age, and I have a health plan at work. So I just don't think that's something that we should, if you need it, possibly, but I understand how they're doing it, but I don't need it, quite frankly.
Okay, Councillor Gaffney.
And just to further what Councillor Clifford said, that we're not just making the decision for the 11 of us sitting around the table right this very minute. We are making a decision for future occupants of these 11 chairs. So we shouldn't be just looking at our own personal needs as we make this decision.
Councillor Vasilakos.
I was going to make the same point, that each of our situations, and they can also change, right? So that, whatever we choose, we can't make it so personalized that it's only, that it gets complicated. We have to do what is reasonable for, that would apply to everyone. And so having that option of having it or not and taking into love seems to strike that balance for what other municipalities are offering, but also that ability. And it's also for the ability that I think you can switch. Like if your situation changes, you can have the option of having benefits if you don't have them now. Because especially in the future, we know that future councillors will be moving through careers and moving through jobs, and there'll be a lot of change. So given we keep talking about job churn, it's probably best that we keep it an option open for people.
Okay. Anything further? Ms. Mockler?
So through your worship, in terms of opting into the benefit plan, generally that would have to be as a result of a material change. in one status. So if your spouse were to lose benefits, et cetera. So it's not, it has to be taken as a package. And in essence, so if there was an election, we would, sort of enroll folks, but you can't sort of be in and out unless there's been a material change in status.
And that's what I'm saying, but you could have material change in status and have that option. Yeah.
Okay. I think for the Councillor Seven.
Could I just have the motion read back, please?
Yes. Whenever you're ready, Madam Clerk.
So through you, Your Worship, it is my understanding that the motion is that option 2, retroactive to January 1st, 2019, be approved, and that the, let me get the proper terms. And that the health benefits commence January 1st, 2020.
Yes.
Health and dental, yeah.
Through the chair, health and dental.
Anything further? All right, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? 3 opposed, that carries. Next item.
Moving on to Section 10, Notice of Intent. Item 10.1 is Notice of Public Meeting for the proposed renewable natural gas plant. Notice is hereby given that Stratford City Council intends to hold public meetings on November 6, 2019 to provide information and to gather input from the community on the renewable natural gas project proposed for Stratford's water pollution control plant, and attached to the agenda is a notice outlining additional details.
Thank you.
Moving on to Section 11, Reading of the Bylaws.
Councillor Gaffney, your hand.
Yes, are we going to be sitting as city council or as infrastructure committee for these meetings?
Through the chair, it will be City Council.
It's a public meeting and the deputy mayor will be chairing it. Good.
So moving on to Section 11, Reading of the Bylaws. There are 2 bylaws listed for consideration. Item 11.1 is to amend the Retail Business Holiday Act with respect to the Value Village application. And item 11.2 is the delegation of authority to sign leases for the Britannia Street housing project. And these bylaws could be taken collectively upon unanimous vote of council present.
Moved by Councillor Burback and Councillor Bunting. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's unanimous, so we'll go to first and second reading. Councillor Henderson and Councillor Ingram, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. Third and final reading, Councillor Burback and Councillor Gaffney. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Moving on to item 12, Consent Agenda. Are there any items listed on the consent agenda to be considered by council?
Councillor Henderson?
I just had a question about CA 2019151. It's about the city is going to be calling for requests for quotation for the curbside organic waste carts. Are we having the option of, say, 3 different sizes? I notice other municipalities have the different sizes. Do we know exactly what we're asking for yet?
Through your worship, this is the green bin program, and there's
Right.
typically a one-size green bin that we're looking at, so
Okay.
that's the standard bin that you'll see in other communities.
Well, some of them have 3 different sizes. Like even when I was down in Niagara Falls, I noticed some were short, some were taller. Like when you go on the websites, they have 3 different prices in some of the, I just didn't know what, because, some people might need big ones and some might just need smaller ones, right? So, okay.
Councillor Gaffney?
Through your worship, because I have no idea what these carts look like and lots of other people in this community, do they look like the blue recycling bins, except they're green?
Your worship, no, they're taller, skinnier, depending on what we have. There's a lid on it with a clasp to clasp it down.
But it's not the size of the recycling bins they bring out of here on recycling.
Oh, no, not that size,
Yeah,
considerably
that's tall.
smaller, yeah, considerably
Again,
smaller.
that's something else some people have been asking me, so thank you.
Councillor Henderson?
I had another one, sorry. And are we going to look at the ones that have the wheels versus the ones that you have to carry out? Because the wheels are, I know I've got them for both my garbage and recycling now, and it's a joy to take it out to the curb.
Your worship, I'll talk to staff to see what they're looking at, if it's the
Okay,
ones with.
because I think the wheels would be a lot easier. I noticed some of them have it and some don't.
All right, anything further? Anything? All right, we'll go to new business. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, do you want to do the confirmatory bylaw?
The chair, yes.
Okay. First and second reading of the confirmatory bylaws, Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Ingram. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Third and final reading, Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Clifford. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting, Councillor Bunting, Councillor Burback. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.